Hillary emails reveal true motive for Libya intervention by Brad Hoff, January 6, 2016. Hillary emails reveal true motive for Libya intervention. Libyan leader Muammar al-Gaddafi, who was murdered by Western-backed rebels on October 20, 2011, planned to create a gold-backed African currency to compete with the dollar and euro. Photo, Jesse B. Awalt, U.S. Navy. Newly disclosed emails show that Libya's plan to create a gold-backed currency to compete with the euro and dollar was a motive for NATO's intervention. The New Year's Eve release of over 3,000 new Hillary Clinton emails from the State Department has CNN abuzz over gossipy text messages, the "Who Gets to Ride with Hillary" selection process set up by her staff, and how a cute Hillary photo fared on Facebook. But historians of the 2011 NATO war in Libya will be sure to notice a few of the truly explosive confirmations contained in the new emails: admissions of rebel war crimes, special ops trainers inside Libya from nearly the start of protests, Al-Qaeda embedded in the US-backed opposition, Western nations jockeying for access to Libyan oil, the nefarious origins of the absurd Viagra mass rape claim, and concern over Gaddafi's gold and silver reserves threatening European currency. Hillary's death squads. A March 27, 2011, intelligence brief archived here on Libya, sent by longtime close advisor to the Clintons and Hillary's unofficial intelligence gatherer, Sidney Blumenthal, contains clear evidence of war crimes on the part of NATO-backed rebels. Citing a rebel commander source, speaking in strict confidence, Blumenthal reports to Hillary, emphasis mine. Under attack from Allied air and naval forces, the Libyan army troops have begun to desert to the rebel side in increasing numbers. The rebels are making an effort to greet these troops as fellow Libyans, in an effort to encourage additional defections. Source comment, speaking in strict confidence, one rebel commander stated that his troops continue to summarily execute all foreign mercenaries captured in the fighting. While the illegality of extrajudicial killings is easy to recognize groups engaged in such a conventionally termed death squads, the sinister reality behind the foreign mercenaries reference might not be as immediately evident to most. While over the decades Gaddafi was known to make use of European and other international security and infrastructural contractors, there is no evidence to suggest that these were targeted by the Libyan rebels. There is, however, ample documentation by journalists, academics, and human rights groups demonstrating that black Libyan civilians and sub-Saharan contract workers, a population favored by Gaddafi in his pro-African Union policies, were targets of racial cleansing by rebels who saw black Libyans as tied closely with the regime. 1. Black Libyans were commonly branded as foreign mercenaries by the rebel opposition for their perceived general loyalty to Gaddafi as a community and subjected to torture, executions, and the towns liberated by ethnic cleansing. This is demonstrated in the most well-documented example of Torga, an entire town of 30,000 black and dark-skinned Libyans which vanished by August 2011 after its takeover by NATO-backed NTC Misraten brigades. These attacks were well known as late as 2012 and often filmed, as this report from The Telegraph confirms. After Muammar Gaddafi was killed, hundreds of migrant workers from neighboring states were imprisoned by fighters allied to the new interim authorities. They accused the black Africans of having been mercenaries for the late ruler. Thousands of sub-Saharan Africans have been rounded up since Gaddafi fell in August. It appears that Clinton was getting personally briefed on the battlefield crimes of her beloved anti-Gaddafi fighters long before some of the worst of these genocidal crimes took place. Al-Qaeda and Western special forces inside Libya. The same intelligence email from Sidney Blumenthal also confirms what has become a well-known theme of Western-supported insurgencies in the Middle East: the contradiction of special forces training militias that are simultaneously suspected of links to Al-Qaeda. Blumenthal relates that an extremely sensitive source confirmed that British, French, and Egyptian special operations units were training Libyan militants along the Egyptian-Libyan border, as well as in Benghazi suburbs. While analysts have long speculated as to the when and where of Western ground troop presence in the Libyan war, this email serves as definitive proof that special forces were on the ground only within a month of the earliest protests which broke out in the middle to end of February 2011 in Benghazi. By March 27 of what was commonly assumed a simple, popular uprising, external special operatives were already overseeing the transfer of weapons and supplies to the rebels, including a seemingly endless supply of AK-47 assault rifles and ammunition. Yet only a few paragraphs after this admission, caution is voiced about the very militias these Western special forces were training because of concern that radical, terrorist groups such as the Libyan fighting groups and Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb (AQIM) are infiltrating the NLC and its military command. The threat of Libya's oil and gold to French interests. Though the French proposed UN Security Council Resolution 1973 claimed the no-fly zone implemented over Libya was to protect civilians. An April 2011 email archived here, sent to Hillary with the subject line, "France's client and Gaddafi's gold," tells of less noble ambitions. The email identifies French President Nicolas Sarkozy as leading the attack on Libya with 5 specific purposes in mind: to obtain Libyan oil, ensure French influence in the region, increase Sarkozy's reputation domestically, assert French military power, and to prevent Gaddafi's influence in what is considered Francophone Africa. Most astounding is the lengthy section delineating the huge threat that Gaddafi's gold and silver reserves, estimated at 143 tons of gold, and a similar amount in silver, posed to the French franc, CFA, circulating as a prime African currency. In place of the noble-sounding responsibility to protect R2P doctrine fed to the public, there is this confidential explanation of what was really driving the war, emphasis mine. This gold was accumulated prior to the current rebellion and was intended to be used to establish a Pan-African currency based on the Libyan golden dinar. This plan was designed to provide the Francophone African countries with an alternative to the French franc, CFA. Source comment: according to knowledgeable individuals, this quantity of gold and silver is valued at more than $7 billion. French intelligence officers discovered this plan shortly after the current rebellion began, and this was one of the factors that influenced President Nicolas Sarkozy's decision to commit France to the attack on Libya. Though this internal email aims to summarize the motivating factors driving France's, and by implication NATO's, intervention in Libya, it is interesting to note that saving civilian lives is conspicuously absent from the briefing. Instead, the great fear reported is that Libya might lead North Africa into a high degree of economic independence with a new Pan-African currency. French intelligence discovered a Libyan initiative to freely compete with European currency through a local alternative, and this had to be subverted through military aggression. The ease of floating crude propaganda. Early in the Libyan conflict, Secretary of State Clinton formally accused Gaddafi and his army of using mass rape as a tool of war. Though numerous international organizations, like Amnesty International, quickly debunked these claims, the charges were uncritically echoed by Western politicians and major media. It seemed no matter how bizarre the conspiracy theory, as long as it painted Gaddafi and his supporters as monsters, and so long as it served the cause of prolonged military action in Libya, it was deemed credible by network news. 2 foremost examples are referenced in the latest batch of emails: the sensational claim that Gaddafi issued Viagra to his troops for mass rape, and the claim that bodies were staged by the Libyan government at NATO bombing sites to give the appearance of the Western coalition bombing civilians. In a late March 2011 email, WikiLeaks copy here, Blumenthal confesses to Hillary that I communicated more than a week ago on this story, Gaddafi placing bodies to create PR stunts about supposed civilian casualties as a result of Allied bombing, though underlining it was a rumor. But now, as you know, Robert Gates gives credence to it. See story below. Sources now say, again rumor, that is, this information comes from the rebel side and is unconfirmed independently by Western intelligence, that Gaddafi has adopted a rape policy and has even distributed Viagra to troops. The incident at the Tripoli press conference involving a woman claiming to be raped is likely to be part of a much larger outrage. We'll seek further confirmation. Not only did Defense Secretary Robert Gates promote his bizarre, staged bodies theory on CBS News, Face the Nation, but the even stranger Viagra rape fiction made international headlines as U.S. Ambassador to the UN Susan Rice made a formal charge against Libya in front of the UN Security Council. What this new email confirms is that not only was the State Department aware of the spurious nature of what Blumenthal calls rumors originating solely with the rebels, but did nothing to stop false information from rising to top officials who then gave them credence. It appears, furthermore, that the Viagra mass rape hoax likely originated with Sidney Blumenthal himself. Hillary emails revealed